Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here are your hosts, Brian E. Roach and Pittsburgh Steelers cornerback, Trey Johnson.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast, brought to you in part by the Legends of Pittsburgh Cruise. Join a bunch of different Pittsburgh legends, 20 or more, plus thousands of fans who will sail to the Caribbean for the fifth year on March 4th, 2019. Guys like Juju Smith-Schuster, Rocky Bleier, Willie Parker, Andy Russell, Antoine Randall, Donnie Shell, Santonio Holmes, and more. Go to steelcityunderground.com/Legends Cruise. Use the code SCU19 if you book a cabin, and hopefully we will all look forward to having a great cruise down the road. In the meantime, as we still recover from what occurred last weekend, it's post-game time or pre-game time, which means it's time to welcome back Trey Johnson for Trey's Corner. Trey, welcome aboard the show again.
Yeah, man, thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely. It's always a pleasure, and I'm sure it will be an interesting dip into your mind this week after what happened last week. It's an interesting upcoming week, but before we get into that, let's tell us what's going on with you. How are things going? What has or has not changed over the last week?
Everything is going. I'm feeling a lot better. My shoulder, I probably got another month, technically in rehab, but I kind of feel normal. The doctors kind of told me though, after a few months, your body will feel normal, but it's actually not ready. I notice sometimes in my everyday life that I'm not ready. Just like strengthening wise, everything. I have my range of motion back, and everything like that is solid, but it's just not as strong as it was before. So right now I'm just focusing on strength, building that back up and then getting it back to where it was, and just kind of getting back into football specific drills. I'm starting to get back into my back pedal a little bit more, being able to come out of our breaks and different things like that. So, it's progressing quickly, but we're not there yet, but we're almost there.
Well, that's all good news. And you think everything is still on track for next year?
Oh yeah, definitely. I will definitely be back by next year. And I last week, I think it was when Joe actually asked me about whether or not, if I were able to come back this season, I actually talked to some people and I figured out that I won't be able to, even if I were able to, even if I were cleared by the end of the season. The way that I was put on injured reserve, I actually can't come back this year. So, even if I do come back and I feel better, I'm definitely for sure going to be back next year. I know that. Excellent.
All right. As much as most of Steelers Nation, myself included, and probably everybody doesn't really want to think about last week's game, let's take a quick delve into it, especially because one of our loyal listeners went ahead and in the comments provided a question for you, and I think we'll see how you want to respond to this. It has to do with less than. Let's say below the line officiating in the game. And so the question is, what goes on in a defender's mind when horribly missed calls such as this happens? And I believe that what he's referring to is the offsides or the false start penalty that was not called that led to a San Diego touchdown and leads to a touchdown. What are you thinking, and how do you recover from that?
That's kind of a two-part question, two-part answer, I guess. For me, the first part is, when it initially happens, as a competitor and as an athlete who's out there on the field, you immediately get angry. You immediately just want to kind of just snap on the ref, and you're just like, hey, like you have one job. Your job is to officiate the game, and especially when it's something so blatant as that was. You're just kind of like, like, how do you miss that? And then on top of that, it gives up a touchdown. You just feel gypped, almost bamboozled. Like they really you feel like it's the ref's fault. But, like I always say, you kind of have to be like a spaceship. You can't really have a rearview mirror. You kind of eventually have to get over it. So for me, I feel like once you get to the sideline, after the field goal or the extra point or whatever it is, once you get back to the sideline, you have to, resettle, refocus, and just kind of forget about it, which is, sometimes hard to do, especially in that case, because I'm pretty sure that tied the game up. So that put us in a position where you're just like, dang, like, now it's a tie ball game. It can really go either way at this moment. So, you just really have to, resettle yourself. Sometimes your teammates might come up to you, or, whoever that vocal leader is can come up and just be like, down, let's lock in, and just kind of get back into it and just try and forget about it. But, kind of remember it on the back of your mind so that that you don't leave the game up to the refs, because if you leave it up to the refs, 99% of the time they're going to let you down.
Yeah, I'll buy into that.
Yeah.
The thing that I wonder about, is especially in a game like that, where it with the false start calls, there was a wonderful human being who decided to go through the game film and pull and create a montage of every missed false start call that was blatant in that game, and there were like 7 of them. And I know after the game, when Steelers.com does its around the locker room talking to guys like TJ who have to sit there and look at it play after play after play, he looked much more dejected with that game and frustrated than just a loss would account for. So, I mean, how does it impact you if you continue? I mean, once you can kind of walk over, right? Okay, it stinks. Let me shake my shoulders, shrug my shoulders, and it's gone. But what happens if it continues to happen repeatedly throughout the game?
When it's continuous, there's not much you can do about it. Especially from the athlete standpoint, all you can do is just, keep trying to forget about it, and then, sometimes people just try and do it on their own. If you see that person, that person's jumping or whatever, you try and get a jump on them, because obviously, if the refs aren't calling it, you have to assume that the refs aren't going to call it going both ways, so you kind of just have to play the game within the game, I guess you could say, and just kind of, keep trying to make plays and just keep trying to finagle your way around the refs, because, like I said, the refs, they're not on your team. Most of the times they're on the opposing team.
Yeah, and well, it's interesting you say it that way, because after the game, I said in the post game when I was talking to Joe, I said the Steelers didn't play just the Chargers; they played the Chargers and the refs, and the Chargers scored 13 points and the refs scored the rest. And as a player, when you're on the field, and it feels like the calls are considerably one-sided, do you really end up feeling like, what? We're playing 2 teams out here.
Oh, absolutely. You do feel like that. And kind of like you just said, how you said that TJ looked like he was kind of dejected and, down. It definitely does play on your confidence and play on your heart, because you're just kind of out there. You're like, not only are we playing this team, but, we're not getting any calls. They're missing calls on us. You're getting held and you're not getting a flag, or, different things like that. You're getting clipped in the back and, there's no flag. So it's just a frustrating thing to kind of go through. You're just kind of mad about everything, and you realize that, we're not just playing one team, we're playing another team, but you have to, in that situation, somebody has to step up and just kind of take that leadership role and just be like, yo, like, yeah, the refs are making some awful calls, and, everybody on your team is going to agree with you because they see the calls, they see the missed calls that the refs are missing. So you just kind of have to take that leadership role and be like, okay, they're making these bad calls. We have to dominate them so much in order to the fact that it doesn't matter that the refs are on their team, that, we're just winning by so much that they can't come back, and that, that they can't do anything about it. So that's just kind of the mentality that you have to have, take that whole entire it's us against the world mentality and just apply that into your game and into the way that you're playing out there on the field.
Gotcha. And, a lot of times I think fans would love to hear players at the end of the game, in post-game interviews, really just come out and say exactly how we feel, which is, wow, that was awful.
Yeah.
But, the league is very protective, of course, of criticizing the refs from active players and coaches and whatnot. How do they, I know that they do, especially for rookies, they do a lot of orientation kind of stuff. But I mean, how hard do they project the fact that you really can't criticize the refs publicly?
They don't touch on it too much. We had it was a part of one session, but it's not something that they touch on too much. It's just kind of a commonality, I guess you could say. A lot of people just realize that you you don't ever want to be on the bad sides of the refs.
Well, that's true.
Yeah, if you go out there and you say something bad about the ref, obviously the refs are going to hear it. And the next game, it's not going to make it better. It's going to make it worse. The refs are going to go out there and you're not going to get any calls, So you just kind of have to, play the game within the game. So you just kind of try and, evaluate it, and just kind of forget about it. And it's funny that, we're talking about these refs. And I know that I'm pretty sure that one of the players on the Bills, they had like almost an altercation in the tunnel after the game with one of the refs just because he was making some awful calls or whatever. So,
yep.
The intensity between ref and player, it's kind of always there. But, me personally, I try and go up to every ref, before the game, just kind of introduce myself, say what's up or whatever, and just kind of get them laughing and just make it seem like, I'm this great player or a great person, just to see if I can get some calls going my way or our way, really, whatever it is. And, in the game, obviously, heat of the moment, some things are said that, I can't really say right now, but, you just kind of got to try and keep moving on, keep pushing and just kind of take the chips as they fall and just make it do what it do.
Absolutely. As they say, you get more with kindness than with, anything else. So
yeah.
I get and I get how hard it might be. I mean, I can get away with it because, I'm becoming notorious for the hashtag the refs stink. And where people on Twitter now know the minute a bad call comes out, they start looking for me to say it. And I don't have to because it seems like it's not just against the Steelers. I mean, it's the level of officiating, in my view, has gone down over the past few years. But I don't know what to attribute that to, other than maybe a lot of them are like me and they can't see anymore because they're old. But
that might be the problem.
I don't know. So I guess we'll tuck that one away now, and we'll start to try and look ahead to next week. And unfortunately for the Steelers, these next 4 games. You want to think there's a gimme coming up, which is this week against the Raiders because they're 2 and something.
2-10, I think it is.
Yeah, 2 and
2 and not good.
Yeah, 2 and not good. But at the same time, it's in Oakland, and this is Ben's never won there. The Steelers are notoriously bad in when they go there. Things happen that seem unexplainable. So it's no Steelers fan is comfortable. Let's just put it that way with the game this week because of where it is. It's a place they just don't always play well. But that being said, we go out to Oakland with Chucky Grewdog out there who has never won a game against the Steelers. He's 0-3 lifetime against the Steelers. So if we're looking for something positive, that's a positive. Offensively, we're averaging about 413 yards. They're averaging about 346 yards per game. It's Derek Carr, Doug Martin, Jalen Richards, and Jared Cook. Their tight end has been coming on a lot as well. Their defense gives up almost 400 yards, 396.6. We're doing 328. The sack leader is a rookie, Maurice Hurst, who's only got 4. They got a bunch of people with multiple interceptions. That's ahead of us because nobody has more than 1. It looks like a game that is very favorable to the Steelers. And yet, I think I said this to you when we talked about the Jaguars. I said, I want to be confident in this game, but I'm not. What do you see when you look at what's coming up this weekend?
With the Raiders, they're nothing, extravagant. I think that, they have a lot of good players. It's just their chemistry really hasn't clicked, and they really haven't come together. They got a new head coach, and Coach Gruden. This is his first year with them. So it's kind of different when you have a new head guy in charge. It takes a while for that chemistry to build up and everybody to get back on track. But obviously the way that you can see that they have the potential of being successful. From the past year. How they went to the playoffs and the year that they had. So you kind of have to take that with a grain of salt and just realize that, they're still NFL players. It's not like they're all scrubs. They definitely have the chance of making big plays, when the opportunity comes. They just haven't made them. And, our job this week is to make sure that we continue to make sure that they don't make them, and make sure that those opportunities don't come often, make sure that, everybody knows their job, and everybody's doing their role. And I feel like if we go out there and we just play solid football, we'll be all right. We really don't have too much to worry about.
Yeah. I mean, we hope that's true. I mean, I used to write post-game or pre-game articles for the site, and I tended to focus a lot on history and trends. And, obviously, as we said, the trend here is they haven't won in Oakland since 2002. Now, admittedly, they don't play there that often, but you're talking about 1, 2, 3. They're 1-3 over their last 4 games or so. There, it looks like. Actually, I was wrong. They haven't won in Oakland since 1995.
Oh man, that's a big difference right there.
Yeah, it's been a while, but I mean, again, they've only played 4 games in Oakland since then, and that is, the Raiders lead the overall series 15-13. This is back in the 70s. This was a nasty kind of rivalry, but certainly isn't so much now. And it feels like the Steelers should have sort of had their way with this team, and a lot of times they don't. And I know we've talked about this before about potentially playing down to an opponent. Is that a myth, or is that just in the fans' head, or does it get in a player's head where they're like, yeah, we got this? And for some reason you end up not taking the opponent as seriously as maybe you should.
It can at times. I don't think that's going to be a problem this week, just because of the fact that the game that we had last week, was such a close game, and the way that they came back and kind of clawed their way back to the victory. I feel like it was kind of a wake up call, and kind of put us in a position to where we realize that it's not as easy as it is. And even going back 2 weeks with the Broncos game, that was a team that I felt like we should have went out there and kind of beat, not with ease, but they definitely shouldn't have lost that game. And especially having 2 of those, back to back, you kind of realize that, okay, we gotta tighten up. We aren't what we think we are. We aren't at the level that we think we're playing at. So we can't play down to our opponent's level, and we have to elevate ourselves and kind of find that level that we need to be at in order to make another Super Bowl run.
All right. And on the Raiders, as we said, you got Derek Carr, you've got Doug Martin, Jalen Richard is I think a running back there as well. As I said, Jared Cook, Jordy Nelson is playing there. They got a rookie wide receiver, Marcel Aitman. I'm not sure. I'm terrible at pronouncing names. But what do you see from the standpoint of when the Steelers are going to be on defense? Who do they need to be worried about on the Raiders side of the ball offensively?
I feel like Jared Cook and Jordy Nelson are their 2 biggest threats. Jordy Nelson this year hasn't really been having the year he's been expecting, I feel like, but he's still one of the premier wide receivers in the NFL. So you still have to take into account what he can do. And then of course Jared Cook. Like I always say, the tight end is a very hard position to guard. You got somebody that's as big as an offensive lineman but moves like he's a receiver. So just kind of that trait of somebody being able to do that it makes it difficult to guard them and create a matchup for them. So that's somebody we definitely have to look out for. And of course Derek Carr, him being an all-pro quarterback, he definitely knows how to pick apart a defense and kind of put the ball in the right position. So I feel like Jared Cook and that connection with Derek Carr is something that we really have to worry about. And just kind of make sure that we're on top of him. We know where he is anytime he's on the field, and kind of take into account, because he's kind of turned into the favorite target for Derek Carr. So anytime that somebody has a favorite target, you got to make sure that we're targeting them on defense also. Because if the ball's going there, we need to be there.
Gotcha. And when you look at to go back to last week real briefly, the Steelers gave up a lot of yards to Keenan Allen. There was a lot of complaining about who was covering Keenan Allen. Now, is that in large part because the Steelers were a little bit light in the secondary with Morgan Burnett being out, Cam Sutton was out, or is it just the fact that you've got another Hall of Fame quarterback in Phillip Rivers who is simply going to find the bad matchups? And at times you are in bad matchups. There's, you can't get around it. There are certain schemes that are going to lead to matchup problems. Or is it kind of a combination of both?
I think it's a little bit of a combination of both, more so the Hall of Fame quarterback part of it. Coach Tomlin actually had a really funny quote that he said after the game. He was saying that, we played a lot of smoke and mirrors against them. And, sometimes you just run out of smoke.
Yeah.
And, Phillip Rivers just kind of started dissecting what we were doing. And, from what I could see, we weren't really running as much man as we usually were. We were in a lot of zone. And Keenan Allen was just kind of finding those holes and finding the empty pockets of the zone. And Phillip Rivers was finding them. So that's really, I feel like that was the problem with that game. So you just kind of got to realize that Keenan Allen is an outside receiver, and Jared Cook is more so of a tight end. So that the idea of man-to-man versus zone is not the same because, Keenan Allen, he's out there on the island. So if if we are in man, he's out there one-on-one. But, when it comes to a tight end like Jared Cook, if we are in man, he's not really on an island by himself. The linebacker probably is going to be the one covering him, but he has a safety right over him, because he's, lined up in the middle of the field. So the possibility of having a double team or, him looking like he's covered, even if he really isn't covered, is higher just because of the placement and the place of where he starts at on the field.
Yeah. And, the Raiders offensively, if we switch and we look at the defense in the Steelers offense, I have a hard time finding any reason to think that the Raiders can stop the Steelers at all.
Yeah.
I mean, they've given up enormous amounts of points throughout the season. The roster, with the trade to send Khalil Mack to Chicago, and several other moves that I find somewhat suspect that Gruden has made. He's really, emptied the cupboard, so to speak, for the Raiders, and is setting themselves up for trying to rebuild heavily. But looking at who they've got on defense, what they're doing. What matchups can the Steelers take advantage of, or is there anything they really have to be worried about? Are their corners, overly good? As safeties, linebackers, is there anything that scares you in the Raiders defense?
Not too much. I don't want to sound too confident into like the idea that they're not good, but they definitely are still good. But I don't see. From our offensive standpoint, we have so many threats and so many, great athletes on our offense that I don't really see that a matchup on their defensive side of the ball can really stop us. I kind of agree with what you're saying. They do have a great safety in Reggie Nelson. He's a veteran and he's back there and he's really intelligent, but he's so far from the line of scrimmage that, by the time he's able to make the play, we're already 10, 15 yards down the field. So, we're still taking big chunks off the field and, eventually going to find the end zone. So that's really the biggest threat I feel like on their defense is him. And, he's just so far from the line of scrimmage, we don't have to worry about him as much, so I don't see too many people on their defense that we have to worry about. I feel like our offense is going to kind of be able to go out there and have their way, be able to move the ball and just kind of do what we do. Definitely going to control the line of scrimmage, like you mentioned with the trade of Khalil Mack. I feel like that definitely hurt the Raiders defense, and I feel like it kind of hurt their locker room. I feel like a lot of players in their locker room were more so like, why is he doing this? Why is he getting rid of this great athlete? And if you can't apply pressure to the quarterback, it's very hard for you to stop an offense. And they haven't really had the ability to apply pressure to any quarterback this year. So I don't see them doing that against us, especially with our offensive line and the way that they're playing. So I feel I have a lot of confidence in our offense this week.
Now, speaking of offense, and we got to address the fact that James Conner is not going to play in this game, so it's going to be more of a running back by committee with Jalen Samuels and Stephen Ridley, and I guess maybe Trey Edmonds is possibly could get in the game, being activated to the 53 off the practice squad. But we're a little light at running back at this point, and this is a team that tends to give up, is not a strong rush defense. And do you see the Steelers? Is it a function of our offensive line is so good that these guys are going to be able to run unless they trip over their own feet?
I can see that. I feel like these past weeks we've kind of gotten away from the run, and we haven't been running it as much as we usually have. And I feel like this week is the week that we need to kind of get back into that and just kind of get back into that mentality of pounding the ball, down the field. And I feel like, James Conner is hurt, and obviously, he's a great running back. I'm not taking anything away from him at all, but, those backups are still good. Jay Sam, him being a rookie doesn't mean that he's not good. I've seen him, in training camp and during rookie mini camps, OTAs, and even in this season, he scored last week. He's definitely an athlete, and he knows how to play football and find the right hole and find the right gap. Stephen Ridley is a veteran, and he knows how to play too. And even Trey Edmonds, he's nice with it too. So definitely the running back by committee is going to work out. And I feel like kind of how you mentioned with our offensive line, man, I have extreme confidence in them, man. Like I say it pretty much every week, man. I love the O-line and the way that they move together and the way that the chemistry that they have. I don't see anybody on the Raiders defensive line, kind of penetrating that bubble that they have, I guess you could say. And I feel like they're going to be able to control the line of scrimmage. And, even if it is, a bad call, I feel like we're still going to be able to get, 2-3 yards off of it. If you're ripping off 2-3 yard runs, consistently, that's a first down in 4 plays, so you just got to keep it moving and keep it going.
Yep. I just keep going back to the fact that the Browns scored 42 points against them. They've given up 40 plus points 3 times this year. And it's not, yes, one of them was the Chiefs, but another one was the Browns. And, I can't see a way in my head that the Steelers don't take control of this game early, and just have their way with the Raiders defense. The offense has the potential to score. If we can't get pressure, or if we have issues matching up in the secondary, or or Derek Carr finds the holes in zones, if that's what we're playing, they can score some points. But I feel like this is certainly an advantageous position for the Steelers to be in. There's a reason these guys have only won 2 games. I'm going to let you make bold predictions first. I have a couple, but what do you think could happen in this game, and give us what you think the final score will be, as far as things that might shock folks.
A shocking factor. I don't know if I have like a shocking factor. I feel like there's not going to be very much shock in this game. I think the biggest shock in this game would be for us to go out there and kind of lay an egg and not play up to the ability that we have. I feel like it's expected for us to kind of go out there and catch a dub and kind of go out there and dominate. And I feel like that's what we will do and what we're gonna do. So, if I were to give a final score, I feel like final score would probably be something around like 34 to like 14, maybe. I gotta kind of have to give them some type of points, out of respect. And just kind of the fact that Derek Carr, he's an all-pro quarterback, and they do have some threats on their offense. And, you never know with field position and how the game might play out. So I feel like that's kind of the way the game is gonna go. I feel like offensively, we're definitely gonna go out there and dominate. I don't really see nobody on their defense that's, a shutdown player or somebody that's just gonna wreak havoc the whole game. And defensively, they don't have to. They still do have those threats, and obviously in order to silence those threats and kind of have our way with them on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, I look at this. Here's my predictions. I think we're going to drop 40 on the Raiders, and that it will be much like it was in the Panthers game, where we will all have a relaxing afternoon.
Yeah,
that's what I think is going to happen. I think they're going to get to Carr early and often. I feel like, last week's game, to me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, when you play a game like that where you feel like it was taken out of your hands, there's a little extra juice in your craw, so to speak, the next time around, because you want to make sure that doesn't happen again. And I look at this game and I think from a defensive standpoint, guys like Stephon Tuitt, Javon Hargrave, who's been balling out. I mean, he's been playing out of his mind lately, and Cam Hayward, as well as the line. I think that Derek Carr is going to be running for his life most of this game, and it wouldn't surprise me if this is another 6-sack game for them. And we'll have to wait and see. But I just feel like it's going to be more relaxing than we're used to, and that all of our stress and anxiety about the fact that it's in Oakland and we don't play well there is going to fade away. And I need lots of wood to knock on to make that certain, because obviously you could tell I only have a limited amount of confidence in what I'm saying. My own superstitions are getting back in my head, and I go, wait, don't say these things. But that's what that's the way this feels to me. The Steelers drop 40-plus points. They win by over 20. I think they sack Carr several times. Ben does not throw a pick. That's another big thing I think will not happen this time around. And maybe we actually come out ahead in the turnover battle. The defense gets a couple turnovers in this game, and we actually, for once, win the turnover battle and end up victorious. So let's keep our fingers crossed that it goes that way. Is there anything else you want to leave folks with this week? Again, as always, we appreciate it, and anybody listening, either you can fan mail us questions for Trey, put them in the comments, and as happened today, we'll get him to answer them. Provided it's not something ridiculous.
Yeah, man, I really don't have too much to say. I'm just excited for this week. Hopefully, we come out with a dub, and kind of get back on the right track, and keep clawing our way back into the playoff contention and another Super Bowl.
Yeah. I did have one other question I want to ask you, and I almost forgot. Are they in a position now? Are the Steelers in a position now where this actually is a must-win game, considering the Raiders are only a half game behind, or not the Raiders, the Ravens are only a half game behind them in the division? There's only 4 games left. 2 of those are against the Patriots and the Saints. Is this a game they absolutely have to win?
I wouldn't say. Yeah, I feel like it's kind of a game that we have to win, especially with the upcoming games. Us playing the Patriots and the Steelers. I feel like us kind of laying the egg with a kind of gimme game. The gimme games, you kind of have to take them. You can't lose a gimme game. So it's definitely a must win. You kind of have to go out there and catch a dub. And even if we do lose, it's not like we're completely out of the playoffs. Where all hope is lost or anything like that. I just feel like it just makes the road, so much more difficult that we don't want to be in that position. So in order to keep ourselves out of that position, we have to go out there and win this game.
Yep, I agree. I think this is a game they just absolutely have to put in their back pocket and take it. Again, Trey, thanks very much. Appreciate the time. We look forward to continuing to hear about your journey and your insights into things. And for everybody out there listening, as you said, get your questions in. Remember to go check out the Legends of Pittsburgh cruise, where you can hang out with a bunch of different Pittsburgh legends. And I think that'll wrap it up for this show. For right now, his name is Trey. My name is Brian. And as I like to say, it's chaos out there, so be kind.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.